So the question is, what challenges does the profession face when it comes to attracting women? What are the biggest obstacles as you see it? I think there are a number of them, and how can we address those?
I think you rightly said there's more than one challenge. There are a number of challenges. So to start with, from where do we get engineers? They don't just grow on trees. The little kids who grow up, who go to school, who go to university perhaps. So are we attracting enough young people into engineering? Are we attracting enough girls into engineering and into science? That's one part of the challenge. Once we have these young women in schools and in universities, are we retaining them? Or do they just go to the city and they start working in a bank? Do they go to marketing? Do they get married and go away and say they don't want to work anymore? If they do join companies or they stay in academia like me, do they carry on? Do they become leaders? So it's a problem of recruitment, it's a problem of retention, it's a problem of progression. All three things are problematic. So to start with, when we talk about recruitment, are we getting enough young girls in? I think young people make their decisions about what attracts them very early on, aged 8 to 12. So it's at that point that we need to be going to schools and talking about careers in engineering and careers in science, making it soon seem attractive, interesting, fun, that young girls will be interested. And I think a lot of engineers, when we talk to them, we find out that female engineers were attracted to the discipline because they can help change humanity in a better way. They can do something for the society. That attracts them to engineering. So are we making this clear enough to the young girls that we are reaching out to, that what they do can have a very positive impact on human society? We need to do that. And when we do have young girls, or rather young women, in universities and in companies and so on, are we doing enough to support them in their careers? Are they facing sexism? Are they facing a sort of glass ceiling? Can they be leaders? Can they be put at the forefront of their company or their university, wherever they are, so that they are role models and that they're not overburdened and they're supported and they're respected? So I think it's all these things that come together.
I agree with that. There are lots of challenges all the way along the career path, but I think probably one of the biggest wins we've got, well, there's a couple actually of places that we can get more people in. I think we can encourage more girls through school and also their parents. Parents are a huge influence. I mean, I think the stats say that young girls are influenced 60% by their parents and only 30% by their schools. So you can do as much outreach as you like in schools, and if they go home and their parents say to them, oh, engineering is not a career for you, then it gets undone very easily. So we need to tackle it from the parents' point of view and the school as well.
It's definitely a challenge to get women into engineering, and we see that in our ability to recruit women into our organisation. Our traditional route of recruitment for engineers is through apprenticeships. We take on around about 250 apprentices every year. The proportion, and it's really oversubscribed. It's quite renowned to be a great programme. It's a very robust programme, takes 2 years, and it's normally very oversubscribed, but only 4% of applicants typically are from girls. And that, of course, in itself leads you to a challenge of creating the right pipeline. So we have to, and I totally agree with the comments that it goes back to parents and teachers, and we've done loads of research that says, parents are twice as likely to tell their sons to consider engineering as a career path, and as a result, only 10% of girls would ever consider it and would ever consider apprenticeships. So it does go all the way back to parenting. But another point that I think is a challenge that we recognise as well is actually the attitudes of leaders in organisations, particularly male leaders, in promoting and investing in women. And whether we like it or not, I think there are still attitudes out there of leaders that mean that they don't always consider women for roles, for advancement opportunities, for long-term talent investment, and that's a challenge. And in our organisation, I have 7,500 engineers work for me. A small proportion of them are females, and the majority of the managers are male. And we also need to tackle the population of middle managers and senior managers to make sure that it's at the forefront of their mind as well.
From our perspective as engineers, I think that advertising for apprenticeships, it needs to be done like we were saying before about the parents. If it was advertised more in women's magazines, so therefore you've got more women reading about it as a potential, because a lot of girls don't necessarily realise their perception of being a female engineer, particularly a gas engineer, is that it's heavy work and that it wouldn't particularly suit them, and that they might have to be a lot stronger or a lot bigger than they think that they are naturally, and that it's a male dominated field and therefore it's not a role that's open to them or available to them. But if we did more advertising around the schools and careers days, and then to get to the parents, it would be through women's magazines rather than sort of engineering magazines, because a female, a mother in general, is not going to go and pick one of those magazines up. So it's getting to the actual parents themselves.